In 2008, inside a quiet apartment in Noyoda, a 14-year-old girl was found murdered in her bedroom. The initial deduction was straightforward. The household servant was missing, making him the obvious and immediate suspect. But the investigation collapsed the very next day, when police found the servant's body dead on the apartment roof. The investigation became a maze of contaminated evidence. The parents were arrested and eventually acquitted. The true killer remains obscured. The investigation did not happen in isolation. It became a national fixation. Hundreds of cameras outside the house and thousands of hours of primetime debates quickly turned a quiet crime scene into a chaotic media circus. India has a long history of these gripping, high-profile cases. From bodies burned in restaurant tandoors to sudden Bollywood suicides, we consume every detail. Yet the most heavily covered crimes in the country consistently fail to yield definitive closure. When millions of people demand updates every hour, the sheer volume of sensationalized facts, rumors, and leaked theories creates a fog. In the rush to tell a compelling story, the objective truth becomes nearly impossible to isolate. Sometimes the facts are known immediately, but power actively suppresses them. Take the 1999 Jessica Lal case. It was horrifyingly simple. One crowded party, one refused drink, one gunshot, and one death. But because the accused came from immense political wealth, witnesses suddenly forgot what they saw, and he initially walked completely free. It took a massive nationwide public uprising, protests, relentless campaigns, and direct citizen intervention to force the justice system to acknowledge the physical evidence that was there all along and finally deliver a conviction. Contrast that outcome with a young law student who was stalked and murdered in 1996. She understood the legal system perfectly, yet the law could not protect her because her killer was the son of a senior police officer. The initial trial resulted in an acquittal due to intentional police blunders. When elite influence intercepts an investigation, the truth is actively buried. It stays buried until public outrage reaches a boiling point, where it becomes politically impossible to hide. Other times, the distortion comes from the inner circle. In 2015, the nation watched in shock as a prominent media executive was arrested for murdering her own daughter, a daughter she had previously introduced to the world as her sister. Or consider the locked room mystery of a high society wife found dead in a luxury hotel suite. The room was secured from the inside. The physical evidence was so perfectly ambiguous that investigators spent years unable to definitively separate a sophisticated murder from a tragic suicide. We see the same impenetrable dynamic in rural honor killings. Families bind together out of twisted loyalty, jealousy, and anger, creating walls of silence that law enforcement simply cannot breach. Emotional proximity destroys objective truth. When the suspects, witnesses, and victims sleep under the same roof, the resulting narrative is deliberately tangled, making it nearly impossible for standard legal procedures to unravel. The final mechanism that breaks an investigation is the sheer shock of depravity. Extreme brutality hijacks rational inquiry. The public becomes so paralyzed by the horror of how a crime happened that factual investigation takes a back seat. In 1995, a politician murdered his wife and attempted to dispose of her body in a restaurant tandoor. A decade later, the remains of multiple children were unearthed from drains outside a house in Nithari. In both cases, the horrifying mechanics of the violence completely overshadowed the slow, methodical judicial process. This dynamic thrives in the digital age. Recently, a young woman was murdered, her body dismembered and scattered across a city. The gruesome nature of the discovery dominated digital discourse, feeding an algorithmic obsession with the macabre. Celebrity status triggers the exact same reflex. When a young Bollywood actress is found dead suddenly, her fame amplifies the mystery. It spawns endless conspiracy theories, making it impossible to separate genuine evidence from public imagination. When a case pushes the absolute limits of gore or fame, society stops seeking clarity. We stop looking for justice and instead consume the horror purely for its shock value. Look across all these cases. Even when a verdict is reached and a cell door closes, a shadow of doubt often lingers. Whether due to botched evidence or systemic power, the complete story frequently remains just out of reach. The media plays a massive role in this cycle. The relentless pursuit of primetime ratings demands a villain, a victim, and a cliffhanger, effectively turning real, grieving families into characters in a daily soap opera. But we have to look at our own reflection. We treat actual human tragedies as thrilling puzzles to consume on our commutes, listening to podcasts and watching YouTube channels to get our true crime fix. It forces a highly uncomfortable question. Are we, as a society, genuinely interested in fighting for justice and uncovering the truth? Or do we secretly just want to be entertained by dark stories? You've spent the last few minutes willingly consuming a rapid-fire summary of these exact horrors. So let's keep the cycle going. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, which of these unresolved cases do you want us to do a deep dive on next?